Hello, listeners. Welcome to Health Talk Radio Africa. I am your host, Dr. Mary Mugambi, a dietitian. Listeners, how many times have you gone to the market or the supermarket to buy fruits and vegetables, only to find wilted and expensive produce? When there is rain for a few weeks or months, you get really nice colorful fruits and vegetables. A few weeks later, the drought returns even worse than before, and you look at the fruits and vegetables at the market. Most are dull, wilted, and small in size. Even the high-end markets struggle to get good produce. You then pay very high prices for dull, wilted vegetables or small-sized fruit. The high prices force you to take home less than you normally get. In recent years, drought has come more often and the rains are shorter. That is when you realize climate change has hit you right at home. The supply of good quality fruits and vegetables becomes less and less. Listeners, you can cushion your family from buying dull, wilted vegetables and small-sized fruits. Listeners, when the rains come, we get a bumper harvest for fruits and vegetables. There are always headlines of how food is rotting out in the fields because of a glut in the market. A few weeks later, during the dry seasons, those same fruits and vegetables are scarce. In our podcast today, we talk about food drying. Here in Africa, sunshine is plenty. The ample sunshine offers us a solution to preserve food during times of plenty. We can dry fruits and vegetables in preparation for the long dry seasons when fruits and vegetables are scarce, expensive, wilted, and small in size. For this podcast, Health Talk Radio Africa welcomes Lucy Waititu. Lucy Waititu is a faculty member in the Department of Human Nutrition and Dietetics at the Technical University of Kenya. She has a background in food science and started her career working in the food industry before venturing into community nutrition. She's passionate about improving the livelihoods of the community through food security. She's also undertaking a PhD in food science and nutrition at Jomo Kenyatta University of Science and Technology in Nairobi. We welcome Lucy Waititu. Hello, Lucy Waititu. Welcome to Health Talk Radio Africa.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are really privileged to have you. Lucy, the listener is really trying to, stretch their food in their house to make it last. And one of the things that we are talking today is about drying food. How does drying preserve food?
Thank you, Mary. This is an interesting topic. First, I would like to appreciate the fact that you have found it right to have me in your program. I feel privileged. Then on drying, what I would want to say, even as we go into the details of preservation, is that preservation generally is something that has been there since time immemorial, and especially drying. Our forefathers dried food so that it could take a longer period of time, and even up to today we are still doing it. It's only that the methods may have changed, but the concept is still the same. We want to stretch what we have over a long period of time so that even in times of lack or times of shortage, we can still have food.
Yes. Let's really focus on drying the food. How does drying preserve the food?
Now, food generally, one of the main factors that cause food to go bad is the presence of moisture, because
Yes.
microorganisms will require moisture to grow and to reproduce. So once we remove moisture, then we reduce the number of microorganisms. We inhibit them from growing. So this is one of the ways that drying does. It removes moisture from food and therefore prevents the growth of microorganisms.
Okay.
Yes.
So we are destroying the microorganisms and removing any enzymes that will spoil the food.
Yes.
Now, what is required? Here in Africa, we have really nice warm or hot weather or sunlight throughout the year, most of the year. What is required to successfully dry fruits or vegetables?
Yes, you're right, Mary. We are privileged because we have sunshine almost throughout the year. So to dry vegetables, we need enough heat, not too much, such that the food will cook, and not too low, so that microorganisms can grow. So we require enough heat. We also require dry air, so that we don't do it when it is too cold. We require dry air because the dry air will absorb the moisture.
Okay.
Yes.
So heat or sunlight, and it has to be dry. Are there any different methods to dry food? I've seen examples of communities, they put maize on the ground to use the sunlight. Then I've seen some gadgets. What are the different ways we can dry food?
Now, there are many methods available, and all this depend on the type of food and also the availability of materials that are required. The most basic drying method is where we use the sun. Yes, and in this method, food is just laid on a flat surface, and then it is exposed to radiation from the sun, and it is turned. It is turned regularly so that all parts of the food can be exposed to sunlight.
Okay.
Yes, you can also use solar drying. Solar will also use the sun, but this is not direct sunlight. So we have gadgets that absorb the heat from the sun, and then they're the ones now that transfer the heat by convection to the food. So those are the most basic that are being used, but there are more complex methods that are used, maybe not in our homes, but in industries.
Oh, okay. Now, for the listener, we are focusing on the household. So for the household, there is the sun drying, you lay your food out.
Yes.
And then you've said call it a solar dryer.
Yes.
What about things like an oven, or I've seen even an air dryer somewhere?
Yes, that is true. You can use an oven. If there's no electricity, you can have a charcoal oven or a firewood oven, and then the oven is well heated, then the food is placed on trays and it is put inside the oven to dry. And this way, you can do it whether there's sun or not.
Oh, charcoal oven.
Yes, charcoal oven, and this is commonly used, especially when you're drying some fruits like apples and even tomatoes. You can even dry them. You just slice them and put them in the oven, and they're going to dry well.
Okay.
You can also have air dryers. Okay. Where hot air is blown onto the food. So those are some of the methods. You can also use a heated surface, like you can have a hot plate, and then the food is placed on a tray and on top of the hot plate.
Okay.
So, and the hot plate again, it can be heated using firewood, charcoal, or whatever fuel is available in the household.
I can just see myself putting my a hot plate on, as long as the hot plate is not burning hot.
Yes.
To cook the food.
Yes.
So you would put the hot plate on and let it get hot or warm.
Yes.
Put a metal tray.
Yes.
And then put the food to be dried.
Yes.
I like that method. Okay. The listener is trying to imagine. I've got big bunch of leafy vegetables here. Spinach, kales, the traditional green vegetables. In East Africa, there are some that are called managu, mchicha. I'm sure in West Africa, they have their own traditional vegetables. What is the simplest method of drying green leafy vegetables or roots in our society?
Thank you, Mary, for the question. Now, the first step in drying is what we refer to as blanching. Now, blanching involves exposing the food to hot water or steam.
Steam, okay.
Yes, and then allowing that food to cool. After that, you can cool it by dipping in cold water, and then after that, you dry your vegetables. The main reason why we blanch, because blanching really is used as a pre-treatment to drying. We do this because, like we said earlier, fresh fruits and vegetables have enzymes, and these are the ones that cause spoilage. So when you blanch, you inactivate the enzymes. Yes, and then during drying, all you're doing now is just remove the moisture after you have inactivated the enzymes.
Suppose I have a big bunch of green vegetables like spinach, and I would like to prepare them for drying. Just walk me through the steps that I need to take.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Now, the first thing that you do is to wash the vegetables, because you need to remove any dirt that might be there. And once you do that, then you remove the stalks.
Yes.
You remove the stalks because these are and any other edible part that is in the vegetable.
Yeah.
After you do that, I also need to remind the listeners at this point, it is not advisable to shred your vegetables because
okay.
Yes, Mary, because when you shred them, then you're also exposing the surface and you're going to lose a lot of nutrients at this point. Okay. Remember, you're not going to cook your vegetables immediately.
Yes.
So all the processes that the vegetables are going to go through may lead to losses of nutrients. And even as we want the vegetable to stay for long, we also want to have as much of the nutrients as possible.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes.
So now I've removed the stalks. Yes. What else?
Once you remove the stalks, then you dip your vegetables in hot water.
Hot water, okay.
Yes, for a short period of time, 3 to 4 minutes. This is referred to as blanching.
Blanching,
yes.
Okay.
Once you put the vegetables in hot water, then you remove and cool immediately by dipping in cold water.
Oh, I have to dip them in cold water.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
You do that.
Okay.
Then you drain the vegetables. You put in a container like a colander or at least a container that has holes to let out the water.
Okay, you drain them. Yes. Okay.
Once you have drained, then now you can spread your vegetables on trays and make sure that you spread them well so that they're not overlapping. Yes, and then now you put them out to dry in the sun.
Okay.
And as you do this, turn regularly, because remember, the sun, we're only getting the sun from up. So those vegetables that are at the bottom can easily go bad if turning is not done. And then you will do this for a number of days until your vegetables are crispy. Once they become crispy, then you know that they have lost as much water as they can.
Oh, so dry and crispy vegetables.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned a special name there called blanching. For the listener, what is blanching and why do we have to blanch our vegetables?
Now, blanch is a term that is used in heat treatment, a slight heat treatment that is given to fruits and vegetables, and then cooling immediately after the heat treatment. This is not a method of preservation, but it is a pre-treatment that is done before you preserve your vegetables. You do it before you dry your vegetables, or if you're doing another method of preservation like refrigeration or freezing, you blanch. So that is the meaning of blanching, Mary.
So the act of me putting the vegetables in hot water for a few minutes and then cooling, dipping them in cold water, that is blanching.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
That is blanching.
Okay. I've seen some literature where they say you can use citric acid inside the water. Is it true? And what is the purpose of that?
Yes, citric acid can be used, and mainly this is done for fruit and vegetables that turn brown.
Brown?
Yes.
Actually, yeah.
like potatoes,
Yeah, potatoes. Okay.
Yes, this is what is referred to as enzymatic browning. You see, when you blanch your vegetables, you inactivate the enzymes, okay? And enzymes are actually the ones that cause browning.
Okay.
So blanching ensures that the enzymes are inactive, so when you dry your vegetables, then they will not turn brown. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what about fruits? Can we blanch fruits? Like apples? I've cut some apples and they turn brown. I've cut some, pears and they turn brown. So if I dip my sliced apples in hot water, they will not turn brown.
No, they would turn. If you dip in water without something like what we said, like some bit of citric acid, they will turn brown.
They'll still turn brown.
Yeah, they'll still turn brown. But what happens with fruits? Usually, the blanching method for fruits is slightly different from what we do with vegetables.
Okay.
We do what we call dry blanch dry, especially when you're dealing with pears. When you're doing with pears and others like apples, apricots. So what happens in the dry blanch dry? You will, with the fruits, you have to slice because you can't blanch them whole.
Yes.
When you slice, you put them out to dry a bit, and then you blanch after you have dried a bit. Dry a bit to remove the moisture.
Okay.
And then you blanch, and then now you do the drying. So that is the dry blanch
dry. Okay.
Yes.
Now we've talked about blanching. Let's talk about the equipment. The listener is sitting at home and asking themselves, what type of equipment do I need to dry vegetables, fruit?
Yes. Now, the equipment for drying fruit and vegetables are as simple as those that we have in our houses, in our kitchens.
Yes.
If you have a perforated tray, you just spread your vegetables on that perforated tray and put that out. For others, if you do not have a tray, you can still use straws, like if you have, say, like you have harvested maize and you have the maize straws, you just spread your vegetables, because they act just like the tray, because they will let the water down and they will allow your vegetables to dry very well.
You've just confused me now. Let's go to the You said maize. Which are the straws in maize? The stems?
Yes.
The dry stems, eh?
Yes, yes.
And then you lay them down.
Yes.
And
yes.
you put your vegetables there.
Yes.
So that will soak up the water from the vegetables.
Yes.
That is something really innovative. What about those mats? The mats made out of sisal or synthetic, not synthetic, but
yes,
natural fibers.
yes. Actually, those ones are also very good because they will let the water through.
Okay.
If you have that, like I said, we use what is available to us.
Yeah, like banana leaves, maize straws, like okay.
Yeah, even banana leaves. You just spread your banana leaves and you put your vegetables on top, and they will dry.
Wow. Okay. Earlier today, before we started recording, I came and showed you my dried tomatoes. I have 2 trays of tomatoes here, and after drying them, they were able to fit in like a small mug of coffee. Now, I encountered so many problems, and I grew mold. My tomatoes became moldy. I am sure our listeners will start trying to dry their food and they will grow mold. Tell me, how do I stop mold from growing?
There are some materials that we can use available in our houses, like the common salt. Common salt, when you're doing your blanching, you can add common salt into the blanching water.
Wow!
Yes, you can also use vinegar. White table vinegar is very good in
the blanching water?
Yes, to prevent the growth of molds.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. I think my problem is I added the salt at the very end. Oh, that was wrong.
At what point did you add the salt, Mary?
I had sliced the tomatoes, and before I took them out in the sun, with my fingers I sprinkled on the tomatoes, and I'm sure the listeners will probably do the same. And then there was a nice layer of mold.
The best way to use is to put in the
water.
In the blanching water, and the most effective would be vinegar. Okay. Because vinegar, when you use vinegar, even in washing your vegetables in normal circumstances, it stops the growth of molds and even any other microorganisms that may be.
That is wonderful. Which other problem can the listener encounter when trying to dry vegetables or food?
Now, you can also have microorganisms growing in the food before even the food is dried.
Oh, wow.
Especially, you might be preparing to dry. You might prepare your vegetables to dry, and then there's no sun, or the temperatures are low. So when you do that, then low temperatures will encourage the growth of microorganisms.
Oh, okay.
Your food may become moldy because molds are some of the most common microorganisms when we have excess water.
Okay.
Even bacteria, some bacteria may grow. Yes, another problem is like when the temperatures are too high. When you expose your food to too high temperatures, then the food will start cooking. The exterior will become hard when the inside is not dry. And especially if you're using an oven.
Okay.
If you're using an oven to dry and you expose your food to very hot oven, then you might find that your food is cooking instead of being preserved.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, thank you very much. How does one select fruits and vegetables for drying? Let's begin with vegetables. How do I start selecting?
Thank you, Mary, for the question. Now, listeners, When we are preserving food, we usually preserve when there's a lot, when it is the harvest period. So the best thing to do is to get high quality produce. Let us not preserve something because it is going bad. When you preserve it, when it is going bad, you will consume it when it is bad. So it is important that we get high quality fresh fruits and vegetables. So you select at their peak when the eating and flavor qualities are high. Yes.
And what about, I know when we've gone to the village, we've seen maize being dried, but we take it for granted that we know. And we've got other things that we dry, like peas and beans. For the listener, how do we choose what time to dry this kind of maize, peas, beans?
Now, for the peas, if you are drying your peas, then you would need to, because you want them when they're still, they retain their sweetness. So don't wait for them to be, over mature before you preserve them.
Okay.
So preserve them when they are still slightly immature, so that they can retain their sweetness and the flavor.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Suppose I harvest vegetables today. Do I keep them or do I start preparing right away for drying?
Yes, Mary, vegetables should be preserved immediately they are taken from the farm. You don't keep them, because once you keep them, say if you harvest today and you keep them to start preserving tomorrow, they'll already have started shriveling. They will, anything can happen, and we want to retain every good aspect of that vegetable. So start preparing immediately you harvest. Yes. If you're not ready to preserve, then don't harvest.
Okay. So immediately after picking.
Yes, immediately after
It's
picking.
not hours. It's not days.
It's not days. No.
It's immediately.
It is immediately.
Immediately.
Yes. Yes.
Now, you and I are nutritionists, and our goal is to preserve nutrients in the food so that when we consume the food or the listener consumes the food, they get the maximum nutrients. Are there any loss of nutrients during the process of drying?
Now, thank you, Mary, for this question. This is an important aspect of drying, and it's good for the listener to know that there's minimal loss of nutrients in dried foods, and there should be no worry of deficiency. The only loss that occurs would be during the preparation for drying, and especially at the slicing stage. So if you can avoid slicing the vegetables, the better, because a lot of losses occur as a result of slicing. In fact, what happens is that the volume of the food, of the fruit or vegetable will reduce, but the nutrients will be super saturated. There's a high concentration of nutrients in a dried fruit or vegetable. And you can have an example of mangoes. If you were to dry your mangoes, if you were to get slices of mangoes and dry them, then a small amount of mango would have a very high concentration of nutrients. All raisins, dates, we have a very high concentration of sugar and even other nutrients.
Okay.
Yes.
So the listener is asking, what do you mean volume? So if you dry your spinach, obviously they will shrink, yeah?
Yes.
And the vitamins, they would be concentrated in that small amount. That's what you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Exactly, Mary, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, after drying, how do I store the dried vegetable or fruit or any food? It's one thing to succeed, but what do we do afterwards?
Now, Mary, remember the initial purpose of drying is to
Yes.
make the food stay long. So
Yes.
even after you dry, you have to
Yeah.
continue the same and ensure that the food goes for a period, maybe it's a year or so. And the best way to do this is to store in waterproof containers because you don't want the dried food to absorb water
Okay.
again. So you have to
Wow.
use waterproof packaging.
Okay.
And then when you store, make sure you store in a place where it's away from heat and also not under direct sunlight because this
Okay.
again would cause the spoilage of the food.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Away from the sun.
Yes.
And where there is, it's cool, no heat. Huh?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, how about cooking? I've dried my vegetables. How does one cook, for example, dried spinach?
Now, this you will cook just the normal way that you cook your spinach. The only
okay.
thing is that since it's the volume that has reduced, a handful of spinach will, when you cook, it will increase in volume and get to, like it would in a fresh spinach. And we can get an example of our dried beans. When we dry our beans,
Yes.
and we want to make boiled beans,
Yes.
we boil and they increase in volume. And
That's
you would
true.
not,
That's
yes,
true. That's true.
yes, you would not use the same quantity of dried beans if you were to use fresh beans because
Yes.
the dried beans will increase in volume.
So that's true for vegetables
Yes,
as well.
yes,
Dried
yes.
spinach, a cup of dried spinach,
Yes.
during cooking will increase to probably 2 cups.
Yes, yes, that is true, Mary. Yes.
Wow. And what about fruit? How do I use dried fruit, for example?
Now, if you're going to eat the dried fruits, then they have to be eaten in small quantities because remember we have said that drying concentrates the nutrients.
Yes.
So you will not eat a lot of the dried fruits because then that would mean that you're consuming a lot of sugars, therefore high energy.
Yeah,
so
high calories.
Yes, high calories. So if you're going to eat your dried mango, then just a few slices, not a whole. You can't, have a whole bowl of dried mangoes or raisins.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because you will be consuming a lot of
Calories,
sugar. And a lot of calories.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
That's why even after eating a small amount of dried mangoes, I feel full already versus eating a big, huge, fresh mango.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then
Exactly, Mary.
everything is concentrated in a small amount.
Yes,
Wow.
that is true. That is true. So you just need to consume a handful of the dried fruits.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, we've been talking about drying, but what are the benefits of drying food to a regular household, to a family of 4 living in anywhere in Africa? What are the benefits?
Yes, there are many benefits of drying vegetables.
Yes.
One of them is that you'll be able to have the vegetables throughout the year.
That's true. Yes.
So whether there's drought or whether there's rain, you will have vegetables.
Yes.
And therefore that means that you can be able to keep the cost down.
Yes.
Because vegetables are usually expensive.
Yes.
When there's, during the dry season.
Yes.
But when you have them dried in your house, then that means that you don't have to buy them expensively.
Yes.
In the market.
Yeah.
Okay. Then also you are assured of vegetables throughout the year and a variety in the diet so that you will not say that this particular vegetable is not in season and therefore it cannot be consumed.
Yes.
So you'll be able to vary the vegetables in your diet because it is available throughout the year.
Wow.
Yes, and even when we have dried vegetables, if there's an area, there's a part in the country that is experiencing drought and famine, then it is easy to transport the dried vegetables to those particular areas because
It's true.
yes,
It's true, really.
yes, because the vegetables will not go bad on transit, and also you can transport large quantities because they're already dried. You can be able to transport large quantities without the fear of them going bad, and therefore be able to help those people who are experiencing famine and so on. Yes.
Wow. Now, let's put part of our goal here at Health Talk Radio Africa. We try to solve Africa's problems using solutions. Now, the question most of the listeners are saying, can an urban household dry their food? Let's say like a family like yours and mine. We live in apartments. Can we dry our food, our vegetables?
Yes, we can.
Oh, we can. Okay.
Yes, we can do that at the rooftops.
Okay.
These days, most apartments will have a place at the rooftop where you can easily do that. You only need to spread something, for hygienic purposes. You just need to spread something that is clean and then put your vegetables, just like we said, on trays. You can also use the parking lot during
where we park the cars.
Yes, because I imagine during the day, the owners of the cars
have gone.
It's
so true.
The parking lot is empty. So we can dry our vegetables at the parking lot.
And there's lots of sun.
Yes, and there's a lot of sun. So conveniently that can be done.
Free sunshine.
Yes.
What about the informal settlements? Everyone listens to Health Talk Radio Africa. Suppose you live in the biggest slum in the African continent, which is Kibera in our country. Can a family in Kibera or a slum in anywhere in Africa dry their fruit or vegetables?
Yes, they can. When we look at the rooftops of the slum areas, you find that these roofs are corrugated. They're corrugated down, and there's a lot of sun. There's a lot of sun because, unfortunately, there are no trees there.
Yes.
So the sun is there, shining throughout. So a family can easily just put their vegetables on the
roof.
Yeah, on the roof over the corrugated down sheet. Put the food up during the day, in the house during the evening, like that until the vegetables are well dried. Yes, It is possible, and there are people actually who are doing that even in the slums.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Lucy Waititu, thank you so much for having me and allowing Health Talk Radio Africa to visit you in your office. We really thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, Mary. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes.
Listeners, you agree with me that we all need to do something to stretch our food supply inside the home. By taking advantage of the hot sunshine that is available year-round here in Africa, we can dry fruits and vegetables even a little at a time. Having a variety of dried fruit and vegetables will ensure that your family gets a large percentage of their nutrients during the terrible droughts. Drying makes it possible to have fruits and vegetables year-round. Listeners, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. Listeners, please subscribe to the program. Share this podcast with your family and friends. Many lives have been saved by sharing good quality health education. I always welcome your comments. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to talk about, please contact me at healthtalkradioafrica@gmail.com. You can find us in Facebook and Instagram. Challenge us, listeners. Your problem is also someone else's problem. So reach out and we'll try to give a solution. Until next time, listeners, Remember to eat healthy so you can live healthy. Bye. Bye for now. Bye-bye.